Hi there, it's Heather here with Underwater Panther, and yesterday I attempted to do my first video on Libra. My grandfather is a Libra, his mother was a Libra, so I just, oh yeah, and my, quite a few of my girlfriends, my best girlfriends in high school, they're Libras, so I just kind of wanted to do a brief video, astro-psychology style on the archetype or personality type or sun sign Libra, or the, oh, I forget already, ENTP, there it is, ENTP archetype. So I am going to break it down this time around. Hopefully I get the other video out. But I'm going to break it down by Venus, the ruler, Saturn as it's an exaltation, and then Mars in left field, and the Sun in fall. So that is how astrology breaks it down. Psychologically, it's considered the hero, parent, child, and inferior cognitive functions. So I kind of wanted to break down what each planet represents, and then real life examples of how that plays out. So I want to start with, I'm using my, I use C.S. Joseph's and then my own key card visual representation to kind of like help my mind remember. There's so much in each of these signs and it's hard to remember everything. So it's great to have a little key card with visual representation for someone like myself. All right, so Libra, or the ENTP, is ruled by Venus. Venus represents love, relationships. It can be indulgence, can represent compromising or not, as well as how we communicate with others, not like Mercury, but Venus is a tool planet. When asleep, it can be hedonistic. When waking, it's seeking harmony. And when fully awake, it's very aesthetic. So Venus is the goddess of love. Now I'm also ruled by, I'm ruled by Jupiter, but I have Venus in my exaltation. So I can get where Libras are coming from with high Venus energy. So Venus appears to us like Mercury as a morning and evening star in the sky. The planet Venus never trails far from the sun. So within our birth chart, it is always either in our sun sign or in one of the two signs immediately preceding or following our sun sign. So for example, I am a Pisces sun, and actually my Venus is also in Pisces. But whatever your sun sign is in, Libra, for example, your Venus is either going to be in Virgo, Libra, or Scorpio. So Venus symbolizes all that is love, pleasure, passion. It's beautiful, how you make things beautiful, graceful, charming, and tasteful. Venus energy enriches our senses with delightful flavors, smells, sights, sounds, and sensations. Venus is all about beautifying or making our senses smell and look and feel better. It can be very socially graceful. It wants harmony, friendships, adornment, kinds of amusements. Venus can represent what kinds of amusements we are drawn to and what makes us spend our money on. Venus's creativity urges us to value and accumulate objects, ideas, experiences. Can represent how intensely we are attracted to those things. Venus rules over our capacity to express affection and enjoy beautiful things, so that's where the communication can come into play. Looking at Venus in the birth chart can tell us what kind of lovers we attract, how we relate to the opposite sex, where does our creativity lie, our ability to love and share. It also reveals who and what we value and how we express that appreciation. it reminds me of the extroverted feeling a lot, and FI, cognitive function. So it's like what others value and what we value, and then how we communicate our values. So it was Venus who taught the arts of seduction to mortal men and women in mythology. The goddess whose dominion is love and emotions. Her power of her heart is legend. She stole the wits even of the wise. In a negative light, Venus can represent being temperamental, self indulgent, treacherous, and spiteful, rules over our love affairs, and can also represent vanity and narcissism. So, you've got to look at this as everything falls on a spectrum. Just because you're ruled by Venus or you have Venus in exaltation, that does not mean you're a narcissist, for God's sake. I know that word is thrown out there a lot, but I do want to touch on this subject here and now because the opposite of love is actually indifference. But when a narcissist is indifferent, you start to realize that narcissism is kind of like the opposite of empathy and love. So that is why I want to explain the positive and negatives of this archetype or energy. So, narcissism is when the external becomes internal. So, it's seeking validation outside of ourselves and, pretty much having our self worth come from outside of ourselves rather than inside. That's why a narcissist is very void internally and they don't understand that they have given up all their internal power to the external world. So that's very important to understand. They convert others from the external into the internal. And when they do that, they think they can manipulate others as objects without risk of abandonment. So narcissists are very, they don't, like their weakness is they don't want to be abandoned. So they tend to turn people into objects, and those objects they can manipulate, and there's no empathy there. They don't see others as actual human beings. So, narcissists repress emotions so they don't drown in them. Borderlines actually get overtaken by their emotions, they drown in their emotions, and then narcissists they tend to repress and not deal with their emotions. So, covert narcissists, they aspire to be overt. They want to be grandiose in your face. This is what it is. When they fail, they tend to. So there's overt, covert, and then it's like there's a gap in between there where they actually are smacked in the face with their own self and then they tend to collapse. So there is like different stages that happens, and it's like cyclical. So it's like they try to be in your face overtly, and if that fails, they kind of regress into the covert. So it's more like passive and under the radar. And if that fails, then they tend to collapse and then they go through a period of actually being a doormat. After they collapse, they become a doormat. It's like they're licking their wounds, and then they become uh, over again, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to explain narcissism a little bit here because it's like love is the ultimate consciousness, it's the highest degree of consciousness, even above intellectual intelligence. You have emotional intelligence, and that is what makes us human. We are not just animals. Animals are not, I mean, to a degree, they can nurture their young ones and take care of their little tribe or gang or family or whatever you want to call it. But we are human, so we do have empathy and ginormous, like huge amounts of emotional capacity to understand. So it's just, love is the ultimate consciousness, and that is of yourself and others. It's a state of being, like Dr. Hawkins. I studied Dr. Hawkins. He's an amazing. When it comes to consciousness, breaking it down, the levels of consciousness, I would suggest looking into Dr. David R. Hawkins. So yeah, Venus can represent the highest degree of love, or you can fall into vanity and narcissism. So they can be very passive aggressive. I know we're talking about Libras, but it reminds me of Geminis to a degree because they're very topical. It's like a Gemini, you can talk to a Gemini or Libra or Aquarius even. All the air signs are intellectuals, so they are very good at communicating, but it's topically. So it's like you think you're having a deep conversation with this personality type, but in all reality, they're just really good at communication and the mental gymnastics. So a narcissist, socially adaptive narcissist, they are ready at any moment to shift values, their own values, to gain favor. So it's like the communication, they're acting like they pick up on your values and then they adjust their own, but not really, to gain favor with you. So they're putting on a mask and acting like they believe in what you believe in, and it's just total social engineering. They are very known to be pathological liars. This is narcissist. They have a very materialistic lifestyle, so they're always trying to fill that void with the material. Be so worried with what others. It's that external validation. It's like they don't understand that they've given their power to everyone else for their self-confidence. It's like, hey, look at my jacked up ride, look at my it's like they're solely focused on those things, actual emotional connection, true, honest communication and emotional connection with other people. It's kind of like a mirage. They can have delinquent tendencies, so they can tend to indulge and have major addiction problems. And they think authority is irrelevant. So, narcissism within love and sexuality, they have an inability to remain in love. They just can't be loyal to themselves or anyone else, so it's a huge problem. So that's my little shindig on narcissism. So Venus can represent the highest degree of order of love, actual true love, to the highest degree. That's the emotional intelligence at that level, or it can go all the way down into indifference and apathy, which is narcissism. Um, Plain and simple. All right, so now I'm going to dive into a little bit more about what Venus is. So, Venus is considered the planet of gardeners and every kind of artist. So, Venus is, it's not just sexual energy. And it's like I already did a little video on this. Like, sexual energy is, if you use and wield that, it is the greatest source of creativity. Painters, musicians, all of that are very aware of that realm or dimension. So Venus is representation of gardeners, so the nurturing, the love, the care, and every kind of artist, as well as those who wish to succeed in business. So you can look to Venus to see what you would be good at and what would fulfill your heart, and also be good for others when it comes to business and what career you should be in. So loving intensely can make us strong, ready to take risk, and to endure in the search for satisfaction, but can also expose us to disappointment, jealousy, and a broken heart. Accepting loss by welcoming change and still being loving even in our darkest hours is what truly endears us to others. So the darker side of Venus is irresistible charm, can entice and seduce, and so poison our happiness. Our need to have, to possess, becomes so intense that it is impossible for us to let go. So it can make us, we can never actually be content. It's like impossible to feel content on the darker side of Venus. So only in letting go and appreciating and knowing without grasping and needing to have can we find true lasting happiness. Okay, so the next place we have, I just went over Venus as the ruling placement within a Libra. So then we have Saturn in the exaltation. So we have extroverted intuition in the hero and Venus as a ruler. And then now we have introverted thinking in the parent slot. Within the four sides of the ego, and that is Saturn in exaltation. So Saturn represents, it is an ego planet. When it's asleep, it's habitual. When Saturn is awake, it's overcoming fears. And then when it is awake, it is mature. So Saturn represents how one sees reality and builds structure. Can be backed by a person, place, a thing, a job, a resource. It's also how one places or receives boundaries, limitations, and restrictions on those things. And that can be self or others. Saturn indicates where problems, restrictions, and barriers are likely in our lives and confronts us with the reality of impermanence. Saturn presides over much more than failure and endings. As a planet of firm foundations, it can show us how to strengthen our endeavors and make them more sustainable. In understanding Saturn, we can make a friend who will never give false hope and will always be there to support us, providing a framework for our progress through life, just as it also presides over the skeletons that our bodies need to stand tall and the foundations that hold up buildings. That reminds me of my Saturn, or I mean my Capricorn moon. Capricorn is also a heavy Saturn planet, and Saturn does represent the DNA structure, or also our bones that hold us up. It is the structure. I used to collect bones and arrowheads and all kinds of earthy things like leaves and such. When I was younger, it was like my favorite pastime. So Saturn represents the Lord of the harvest and death, riding the heavens in a chariot drawn by a winged dragon. It can represent the coiled, like spiraling DNA structure, and which structures our life, its ending, and its transcendence to higher consciousness. If we keep this in mind, we can benefit from the positive aspects of Saturn's control and strength. The planet presides over career and longevity, but can also bring bad luck and hardships. However, these aspects are complementary, and a strong Saturn in our chart should not make us downhearted. Early adulthood is generally 18 to 29 and is theorized as a stage where development focused is mainly focused on maintaining healthy relationships. The development of intimacy skills rely on the resolution of previous developmental stages. If this skill is not learned, the alternative is alienation, isolation, a fear of commitment, and the inability to depend on others, like I said, with the narcissism. So they can exhaust themselves with building bonds based upon relationships, law, justice, perhaps politics, so they can be very political, um, building relationships just to have more connections. They can be like serial networkers and serial communicators. They may put the responsibility of their thoughts and actions on someone else. Maybe their own thoughts that limit their capabilities. They can take relationships too seriously, get married too early, coming to practical conclusions with relating. And then they like to build structure on whom they are relating to, so they can just build too many relationships to a degree. All the drama can kind of tend to flow through them somehow. I don't know how that works. Loose lips, perhaps. All right, so Mars is away here. We have Mars in left field, as well as extroverted feeling a child within the child cognitive function. But I'm only going through astrology here. So Mars is a tool planet. When asleep, it's aggressive. When waking, it's harnessed action. And when it's awake, Mars represents being heroic. So Mars is the god of war. It is an inner planet which describes individuals and our tools to help the ego integrate if we become conscious of their influences within us. So it is a tool planet to our ego. It is raw elegance and power that keeps things moving, war with its courageous and brutality, the courage and brutality, unreasoning fury of a demanding 2-year-old can represent early age of adulthood. Mars, in its highest and most effective sense, is much more about style than brute force, delighting in pure adventure and the chase. So this is left field. I gotta blurt this out before I forget it. So just do remember that it's all about technique, not force. And so being in left field, for a Libra, Mars is in left field, which means they are very aware of technique rather than force. They prefer to use communication as their technique and bonds and diplomacy rather than actual manual labor. So Mars works best when trained. Mars works best when we train its energies subtly and make subtle adjustments that control raw force to wait alert and ready to act, and that can be more effective than the loudest roar. It achieves highest expression when the power of the planet is tempered with skills and subtlety rather than outright brute force. And so we must learn to use grace as a technique. Mars features prominently in the seminal work on individuation by the psychoanalyst Carl Jung. The second half of our life, when we go through psychological maturing and self-realization. So by developing a strong and healthy Mars, our actions become confident and effective, and we truly become individuals. The position of Mars in our birth chart indicates the nature and strength of the ways we act, whether we address challenges or avoid them, whether we work with or around what confronts us in life, whether we display courage and confidence or an inclination to dissemble, whether we respond too quickly or too slowly. Mars invites us to examine whether we are warriors or diplomats and what kind of behavior or what male role models we follow. Mars may lead us to attack and even destroy for the joy of an adrenaline rush, or it may arouse in us the use of purposeful courage of the warrior defending its country and keeping others safe from harm. So Mars is associated with displaying excellence and courage in fields of sport, dance, and adventure. So Mars reminds me of extroverted sensing. High SE users are very physical. They're very tactical. They can react quickly in the moment. They have a lot of energy to utilize. So Mars is more effective and far happier at heart when working with Venus to chart the path forward. So Libras may feel more comfortable aligning with others' intentions, dreams, etc. They would rather give ideas, help give ideas. They're probably came up with teamwork makes the dream work. They may do more communication and relating than actually going for something, talking the talk, not walking the walk. Libras feel like they want to do things with others, and it might come off as clingy. So the Mars energy is in left field. It's like they are not really good in this area. They feel out of place trying to do Mars. So Mars is like the physical, let's get stuff done. So they can kind of be like all over the place with just talking, not doing things. So they do long for love and can be very charming. They always end up getting support. It may take less actions than someone else. So they're really good at seeing what other people's do, what the steps are to get there. And they want to just take the shortcut and do it in minimal steps. So they are systematic. They care about the process. They're very smart when it comes to systems and how they work. They are pragmatic, so that they are not going to check in with the group before they make decisions. They are just going to flat out make a decision. They're very entrepreneurial. They're very independent in their decision making. So Mars in left field, it's like They're really good with, perhaps they're better with strategizing than acting tactically, and that's probably physically, and I don't know, they're an intellectual, so I do give it to them intellectually. They're probably more tactical intellectually, and through communication, that is their defense mechanism. Physically, they would rather not be physically involved with working. They are more of like the boss, pulling the strings, forecasting. They're very visionary, they're inventive, they are very open-minded, they are very adaptable to futuristic ideas. So the sun represents our conscious mind, our ego, our life force, our basic identity, our creativity, and who we are becoming. It is our personality's boss, how we act, our drive and character. Its conscious aspect of our mind is only 10%, so really we are only 10% conscious of ourselves, which absolutely terrifies me. That's why I study like I do. So the sun sign guides our personality, characters, essential qualities, and actions in skill development, professional career, competition, all forms of social interactions, the ego, creativity, and logic. The ego or sun sign is the conscious part of our mind, of our personality, where our common sense and reasoning lives, and allows us to organize our thoughts and use them to make judgments on the external world. Sun sign is our uniqueness and potential mastery. It represents our approach and overall nature in this life. We identify with it strongly and have the potential to live consciously through it by personal and spiritual growth, development, fine-tuning, tuning, and integration. So this is the strongest when healthy domain of our mind. So the sun is in fall here for Libra or the ENTP. So this can bring on a lot of self-doubt, may need to express themselves a lot before taking action. They want to get validation from others. All right, so fire signs end up taking a lot of actions and experiences, but may have to do more to get the goal. So fire signs are very action-oriented. Libras, on the other hand, they can be, but they tend to talk a lot before taking action. They like to express themselves and have a lot of energy in the mind, so they more are the charming, smooth talkers that smell and look delicious. I mean, yeah, they're very charming, they're very communicative, they can have amazing memories. Like, it's like the sun is in the fall, but it's also the introverted, sensing, inferior. So, I don't know. Like, I have realized that Libras have some of them have amazing memories, unlike I have ever seen in my entire life. They can remember dates, times, who's related to who moved when, how many kids does this person have with who and what, and I mean, just all of it. It's amazing. The hard drive is phenomenal, and I would say that probably goes for all of the Saturn, like Capricorns, their mind, their memory, they have a large storage and RAM for memory. The SI users, introverted sensing users, definitely top 4 of the ego have amazing memories, so they can use that to their advantage. Like I said in the other video, I don't know if I'm going to post that or not. I went off on a tangent here, and they tend to do that a lot too. I have an Aquarius Mercury, so I might be a Pisces sun, but my mind is literally air sign Aquarius, so it's like very technical. I like to tear apart ideas. So anyways, let's stay on track. So air is thinking and communication and analyzing. They are cardinal air. So they're creating and initiating new ways of thinking. They can be very good with scheduling, helping others schedule with their schedule. Normally create new friendships. Yeah, so they're just very talkative. They love to know people. They love information. The more you know, the more power you have. Libras definitely know that. Um, so it's left brain dominant, dealing with logic. Yang, also external, like to socialize and partake in reality that's external from themselves. So they do get all into everyone's business. So it's funny because Libra season is in the fall when we have Halloween, dress up. Libras can dress up and put themselves in anyone's shoes and act and talk and be just like somebody. It's absolutely amazing. So verbally, they can be situational, so they can act like they take on your values and that's their values. Um, So with the sun in the fall, this can lead to inferiority complex, self-doubt. They can feel ashamed. They can search for glory and power in order to fill that. They can be very sensitive to criticism and realistic setbacks. So they are very high-risk gamblers. I mean, they love to do high risk. Higher the risk, the higher the reward. They are very aware of this. Unlike, I mean, they're just amazing though. They can really pull it off, to be honest. Although they are like the ultimate entrepreneur besides Gemini and Aquarius. And probably, yeah, I'll give it to Gemini, Aquarius. All the air signs can be very entrepreneurial. But they can also alienate themselves from everybody. Um, it's a thing. Very focused on the steps and goals and processes rather than the emotions and feelings. Um, but hey, that's a great way to make money. You know what I'm saying? Workaholism can be a huge thing here. Normally, when you're trying to avoid your emotions, you repress them so that you don't drown in them, but then you take on way too much workaholism. You're working all the time. You get yourself in over your head, and you don't even realize, how did I get here? Anywho, I do love Libras. This kind of may have seemed a little negative. Uh, I love Libras because, like, I can just talk and talk and talk. They're very fun. They're like me. It's probably the Venus. We both love bouginess. This is a new for me term that I love using. It's like, yeah, you just love to sprinklefy sparkles. You know, as a woman, I love sparkly things on everything. I just love to beautify. I love to smell good, look good. I love to make others feel good. You know, that's including having good experiences. They can be very good at organizing trips and shopping trips, vacations, you know, the extravagance, the charming, the beautifying, and the finer things in life, food, shopping, you know, all that good stuff. So I definitely love Libras in that aspect. I love that they're very business. They can be, even the females, males and females that I know are so amazing at business. They're entrepreneurs. They are their own boss. Um, they're really not quick to explode. The anger is in the Mars is in left field, so it kind of um, tones down that aggression in most. So, like, if they are being narky, it's not going to be a grandiose type. It's going to be a more covert, not overt. So overt's like in your face, grandiosity, and then the overt, I mean the covert is more like passive aggressive, you know, hush hush. I'm doing actions, but I'm not really in your face. Like, eh, you know, that's kind of something I would prefer, maybe. I don't want to eat my words. But anywho, I hoped you enjoyed this. Yeah, so I think I'll be doing this for all the signs. I'm kind of like, you know, we're out of Pisces season. It's Aries season officially. The energy is like, you know what I'm saying? Like in your face, aggression, fire is what it is, bluntness. I'm an Aries rising. I love Aries. So I might do a 2024 version of Aries. I do have more Aries. I did have more Aries videos. I don't know which I have more of. Maybe Gemini now at this point. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my video and like and subscribe, and I will see you later.